today, a history is being made in front of us here in the UK. And no, it's not because MPs have decided to work on Saturday, apparently first time in decades, which on its own is shocking to me. Every hard-working person needs to work every now and then, like weekends, overtime, right? Apparently, that's not for MPs. But that's not the history I want to talk about. The history is about the UK's government today deciding to take full control of a privately owned company and prevent that company from basically shutting down. Although it goes against all my beliefs, I'm an entrepreneur. I believe in free markets. I believe in freedom of ownership. And I do not believe in government interventions, and especially not Labour's government. That sounds a little bit scary to me. I have to say, and I have to admit, this is a great, great move. Very brave, very controversial, but very, very needed in this country right now. And let me tell you why. Because not only is going to change everything, the way we live and we expected things to go, and there are some positive things, as I say, but there are also lots of risks which will follow. And those risks are a little bit scary to me, okay? But let me explain you a little bit more. For all of you who are not really aware of what's happening, a UK's government, a Labour government, which is very left government, deciding today to prevent China-owned steel company here in the UK from shutting down. And apparently it's the last one, last big steel factory here in the UK. And the Chinese owners decided it's too expensive to run the business and they want to shut it down. Now, the first thing for me, the shocking thing is like how the government, how we as a country allowed to sell all these companies to China. I mean, how is it that China, who is, okay, maybe not enemy, but it's the opposition to us, right? If we're not doing well, they're doing well. So in business, they don't want us to do well. They want us to do not so well, so we buy things from them. Obviously, it's not very good for the country. And we decided somehow, and that's obviously previous governments, that it's a great idea to sell all these critical factories, critical production lines to Chinese companies. And then to wait for them when one day they just decide to turn off the switch and say, look, it's too expensive, we're going to shut it down, so you can't even produce steel in your own country. I mean, the whole thing, like this, we could allow this to happen, and you politicians and you leaders allow this to happen, is an absolute disgrace. And again, you have to understand, I'm an entrepreneur. I believe in freedom of ownership in markets and buying and all these things. But I think there's a limit, okay? You can't have a country owned by another country which is hostile to you, at least in the business terms, and pretending it's all great. And I think we people seeing it, we just got so fed up. And I'm shocked to see that actually government decided, had enough balls to actually meet on Saturday, right? Let's meet on Saturday. That is hard one. That's already hard for the MPs. But they actually deciding to not let it happen. And they're even threatening people in that business with a punishment at jail time if they close their business. Look, that company is a providing workplaces for hundreds, if not thousands of people, which is on its own extremely important. It's north of part of England, which is less developed and poorer than the south side of England. So obviously that would be a huge blow to local population up there, right? And then on top of it, it's a strategic materials produced in the country for us in UK to use. I mean, we have so many investments, so many things we want to build in the country, which requires obviously steel. We use steel for everything. And somehow we decided that it's okay for other companies, and not even companies from the UK. You see, if that was, maybe I would be able to understand this if that was owned by some English people, but we couldn't talk about this, of course, right? Because maybe we would call it racist or something, or we would call it, what about free markets? Then, well, then I'm talking to you as a free market believer that this is a line we should have never crossed. You see, we live in times where everything is so polarized that you either fully for something or fully against. Okay, there cannot be middle ground. You cannot have opinion about, I like a little bit about what Labour does and a little bit about what Conservatives does. Therefore, I think if we take from both parties what we like. We can actually build something we like more. That might be beneficial for the country. We don't have to be fully Labour, fully Conservatives, right? But we live in the countries where you do, at times when you do. So this steel factory situation, and I think it came up to this point because of what's happening with tariffs across the planet, and America deciding they changing the way they deal with other countries. And the last minute government in the UK somehow found out that in themselves, they realized that if they do this is it. There's no going back. And we would basically be absolutely stitched up by the Chinese government by doing it. And if you see, like, the Chinese governments, they got this critical, the key factories and businesses across other countries. And that they were very smart in doing it, because they could take control of these key, factories and decide to close them down. So then they would force countries like UK to buy steel from their own countries, right? Their own factories based in China, and they would ship to us. And it would work on the paper, thinking that the world is always going to be rainbows and unicorns, and we're going to be always doing business and trades, and there will be no problems. And people believed in that. And I think that was foolish, because people believe, or government leaders believe, that the history ended, like there will be nothing else, right? The wars are not going to happen anymore, and we're just going to carry on like this. And that was foolish. And we're now living in times when everything is just being thrown apart. The table's being, thrown up into the air with all these pieces we nicely put together before, without even realizing where all these pieces will fall, how they will going to fall. We're going to fall together, where we're going to end up as a country, who's going to be our friends, so to say, in business, or which country is going to be our allies, which country we're going to work with, etc. Nobody knows, because of what's happening right now. And you see, there's loads of people who claim that entrepreneurs and business owners are these evil people who do everything for the money, and they all want to do is squeeze money from others. And it's absolutely not true. It's completely not true. And this video is my proof for you to say that there is a line. Okay, there is a line in how much money we can make without actually violating other people's laws, and I don't know, like, just staying human. Like, I don't believe in complete freedom of everything, although it would be nice if we can, but we are not capable. You see, with the freedom comes great responsibility, and we are not responsible enough as a people. I'm not talking about just England. If you're talking about we as a people in general, if you give us too much freedom, we start doing stupid things. Same goes with power. Great freedom, great power comes with great responsibilities. And unfortunately, we as people are not capable of staying responsible long enough to keep everything in place. And then if we keep things loose, as we have over the last 10, 20, 30, 50 years, we see how things get worse progressively. And we end up more corrupt, more, jealous. There's less community, less us in everything. It's just money, business, and corruption behind everything. And we ended up where we are now exactly because of that. And I have to say, again, I am definitely not in favor of Labour government. Never have. I respect everyone. I'm respectful for them, but I definitely not my thing. I think they are dangerous to the country. But again, for what they're doing now, I agree. Well done. You see, because we lost the ability of actual thinking for ourselves and making judgment based on our own experiences, rather than just being steered towards certain beliefs and emotions by media, by politicians, by algorithms, we kind of lost the ability to actually reason and decide, okay, what is good for me personally, for us as a community, family, or us as a city, us as a country. And as much as I believe in, freedom of me as a person and my family, I'm living in a country which needs to be here in order for me to be free, right? I can't have my freedom if there's no country here. And this is so critical in understanding what I think the government is doing the right thing, because we need to have a strong country, strong economy, strong army in order to be safe, in order for me to be free, in order for me to be able to be entrepreneur, to build businesses, to talk about this on YouTube. And we are now living in times where there goes loads of people, on both ends, especially now this Labour ends coming in. It's like, yeah, we should take all the money from people, from rich. And that's a very extreme point of view, and it's nothing, nothing good comes out of it, right? It's same as we saw it before before Trump's election. We see it in Europe, other countries. Like, it's always going left and right. The pendulum things. It slides, right? It swings, sorry, left, right, and it always ends up like this. But if we could agree that there are opinions, but we should be able to actually understand the consequences and benefits of the decision based on, okay, that's for you, that's for the family, that's for the village, a town, and the country, then we would probably make better decisions. And then we would be able to actually make decisions which are against our own personal preferences and choices. Because right now, everybody's trying to choose what's best for them, either they consciously or emotionally, because they've been just pushed so much towards one way of thinking. They can't even comprehend there's another way, or they can't hold two opposing point of views. It's just, people can't do it anymore. So again, me as an entrepreneur, and I believe this goes against all my beliefs. I think it's a good thing for the country. Therefore, a long term, it's going to be a good thing for me and my kids living in the country. And I think the only risky part in this is I never trust government to the degree like they can do whatever they want. Now, the problem we saw over and over in history, it's like if we allow the government to do one thing, then they will do 2, 3, 5, 10, and they will never stop unless they are stopped by somebody else. So I am worried now. Although it's a great thing what's happening, it's a shame that it got to this point where actually previous governments and politicians allow all these things to be sold and owned by different countries. That's a disgrace. But it is what it is. We can't move back in time. So again, it's good that we're putting stop onto, at least now, at least that's one big factor, which is great, and especially in today's turbulent times. But there's a risk behind it, because now the government can come to other companies and say, oh, by the way, we need this company because of whatever the reason. We need this company to help, I don't know, the NHS. And then all the people will be just weaponize their emotions, like, oh, you can't do this if it affects NHS. And although it doesn't, it can be made up, right? It can be just put out there on the telly in the way that people emotionally will just support it. And the business owner will be just put in a corner and say, like, God, I need to do it. Otherwise, I'll be lynched by a mob or something. So that is the risk. And I am worried this might lead to it, especially with the government. Again, these are the people who made this all possible in first place. And now they're trying to prevent it for whatever the reason. Why now? That's a question I'll probably be asking myself. What happened over the last month? And I think this is something to do with tariffs, because the world is going through massive transformation now, and there are lots of risks on the horizon. And although UK can be a joke, I think it's still a serious country comparing to others. So they want to make some tough decisions to stay relevant. Excuse me. But there are risks. There is no... how do we put this in stock? What kind of measurements we can put in place in order for the government to be responsible for, like, okay, this is as much as you can take, guys, but you can't come and take my house, my business, my car, because they can always come up with the reason of why they need it. And they always make people to support this. That's not hard. I'm happy to see what's going on. It's definitely history being made. I've never seen anything like it. But I also never seen UK in such a low point as now in terms of economy and trust, and like it's a mess, right? So hopefully, I think we will have some turbulent times. There will be some difficulties coming our way, but this is a good sign. This is a sign that there's still somebody who's actually trying to make some difference and maybe rebuild something. The only question is like how many freedoms we will have to sacrifice in order for this country to become great again. And for how long? Look, if you like this video, please leave me a like. If you're not subscribing yet, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for your time, for your support, and I'll be seeing you soon. Cheers.